The following is a presentation on the UFSN network. Welcome to the UFAFL Nation.
Yes, greetings and salutations. Once again, welcome into UFAFL Nation. I am your host, Michael Skriz. Week 3 in the NFL is in the books, and boy, do we have a great show for you today. We're going to start off with the UFAFL Spotlight. We got General Manager of the Empire, Cass Hudson, on deck. And then we're going to get into the NFL recap. We had some upsets this week. The Chargers and the Chiefs, what a game that was. The Sunday Nighter was a barn burner. Tampa Bay and LA Rams, we'll get into that. We'll also get into the UFAFL recap. Teams getting off the schneid. Favorites winning. Skrizzy covering his best bets. We'll get in the stock up and stock down. You can check us out here. You can follow me at Michael SKRZ on Twitter. You can follow the UFAFL here on Twitter as well. Scouting department headed by Jamie Thomas. If you have any questions, you can always email us at info@uffsports.com, and there's the website there as well. So let's get into it. We'll start with the UFAFL recap, and there he is on the screen, Cass Hudson, General Manager of the 3-0 Empire. Cass, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, and I see that you're wearing the Jays shirt as well. As you can see, I'm rocking the hat. It's a busy week for the Jays. Probably the most important series of the season. 3 games with the Yankees. How are you feeling about the Jays tonight?
They're in tough. If they play like they have lately against Minnesota, they have no chance. So let's hope the team that swept the Yankees in New York a couple weeks ago shows up.
Yeah, the Yankees have been mashing lately, and this is probably the biggest start of Hyunjin Ryu's tenure here so far in Toronto. So I'm really excited to see how he's doing and how that neck's doing. But let's get into football. Buddy, the squad's looking real good right now. 3-0, coming off a big win over the Valkyries this week. You got your roster up here, your top players. Daniel Jones, little up and down this year to start. DK Metcalf coming off a big week after Tyler Lockett took all his targets the first 2 weeks. Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, probably one of the biggest surprises in fantasy football as well. How are you feeling about the team going forward after 3 weeks?
We're happy. Things are going good. We've had some good matchups so far. Daniel Jones he's been solid, so we can't complain too much there. With his running, it's really adding up. So if he can continue that, and hopefully the Giants can start getting some wins so they stay competitive and don't fall out of this playoff race, that'll keep the drive to put up points. And then our biggest surprise has been Mike Williams, but he's doing what I've expected him to do over the past couple of years. I've drafted him in many leagues over the past couple of years, and he hasn't produced, and now he's finally producing, and it's been great. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, do we try and trade him because he's been doing so good? But I think a lot of people are like, this is the guy that we've all expected, and he's finally showed up.
Yeah, he's a 7th overall pick, I think back in 2017. Obviously very talented. But with Keenan Allen there, I'm assuming Keenan Allen will have some big games later on in the season. But that Chargers offense just looks so good right now with Justin Herbert just slinging it all over the places. And they haven't even really gotten the running game going yet. Like Austin Eckler has had some decent games. That's just because he's catching the ball. So once they start running the ball and opening things up even more for the receivers, man, it'd be hard for you to trade Mike Williams right now because, like you said, like you're 3-0, you're in it right now. Don't really know if you'd want to sell high, but you've been playing fantasy for a long time. How did you get into fantasy, and how did you even get into the UFAFL?
Well, I got into fantasy because I was, during that huge Rider Nation stretch where everybody's going crazy in Regina over the Rough Riders, I just got big into the CFL, and then it kind of carried over into the NFL. 2013 is when I started playing fantasy football. Isn't that long ago, and actually the first couple of years I was only in one league, drafting Peyton Manning in the first round, which is, everybody knows you don't do that. But now I'm in, I'm in 8 leagues, which I think that's enough for me. I can't. The guys that do 40 it blows my mind. I don't know how you keep up with that. And then this league on top of it has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do in fantasy football. That 3 days of drafting was insane. What we couldn't even drink, which that's the whole point of doing these drafts, is having a drink with your while you're doing it. But no, it was a lot of work, and it's paying off right now. We're really happy with this group. Things are going good for us. It's we'd like to be a little deeper, but we looked at this schedule and we looked at our division, and we knew we had to attack. So we went. We kind of upped our budget when it came to the auctions and the rookie draft, and we said we have a chance to make playoffs here, and let's go for it. So we've done that so far, and it's paying off.
So what brought you into the UFAFL? Did somebody reach out to you? Did you know about the league beforehand? Like, how did you get brought into this like professional fantasy football league?
Well, it all started with crypto. So I'm in a few crypto chats on Telegram, and my brother's best friends with Cole, who's one of the founders of UFFS, and we've been in contact over a couple years now, and he's gotten me more and more into crypto. And then the UFFS came up, and I was right away. I was into it and knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. And he reached out multiple times saying, "Hey, if we get a franchise, do you want to be my GM?" I said, "Yeah." I jumped in right away, and brought on a friend of mine, Nash, who he's the AGM, and we're in a couple leagues together where we co-manage some teams, and we work well together. He calls me out on my bullshit, so it's a good mix.
So when you're 3-0, you're obviously got to start thinking about the future and planning out the weeks ahead. Do you have any intentions to maybe buy? Because like when you put up your top players here, I noticed there isn't a running back on the graphic. Do you plan to maybe buy a running back, or is there any other spots on the roster where you think you need to improve?
Running back was number one on our list of areas to improve right off the bat. We've been fortunate so far that Tony Pollard and Madison have filled the starting running back role for us with all the injuries going on. Dalvin Cook didn't play last week, so Madison had a good week. Pollard is not quite splitting the workload, but he's damn close in Dallas. And although Zeke looked really good last night, if he can keep up what did he get, 10 carries or more, 10 plus carries, and 5 receptions a week, like that's all we can ask for. For us, we see that we did not expect how big defensive points would be. We failed in that area when it came to especially defensive ends. Those sacks are huge, and we did not count on that. So that is an area where we're always looking to build on. So are we buyers? Absolutely. One of the hardest things to do sometimes, though, is to not make a move. When you have something, you don't want to overreact. So we're just looking to be patient and take what comes to us.
What I love about this league compared to like my other fantasy football leagues, like if you want to buy in a keeper league, you can just add draft picks. But in this league, there are so many different ways to go about acquiring different players. You can add SCO, you can add picks, you can add a linebacker, you can add a defensive end, you can add a corner. Like there's so many different ways to improve your roster in the UFAFL, which I find fascinating because people that might be watching this thinking about their home leagues, like, yeah, it might be easy for this guy to go get a running back off a team that's lower in the standings. But in this league, it's really not that easy, which makes it it's just very exciting.
It is a challenge, and it's going to be whoever can be the most creative in this league at making moves. It's going to be about building depth. It's not about the big splashy trades. Heat Wave made a big splash of a trade when with those 13 players. So far, it hasn't really worked out because 3 of the wide receivers, I think, or 2 at least with OBJ, haven't played. Luckily for them, their defense is a giant of a defense. They're just blowing everybody away with that defensive core there. So it's about creativity. So you gotta get in there and work hard and just try and make those deals happen.
Well, Cass, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck going forward the rest of the way. We talk about you guys a couple times here on the show, and with the roster you have, with that wide receiver trio right there, and a couple really, really good O linemen. Titans fan notwithstanding, big fan of Roger Saffold, obviously. But man, thank you for taking the time today, and good luck the rest of the season, and hopefully we can chat down the line.
Thanks for having me. We got some big division matchups coming up in the next couple of weeks. Play Silverbacks and then the Kraken right after that. So this could really change things, sway things in a different direction if we can't come out on top. So
I look forward to reading the smack talk in the group chats, man. So thanks again.
It's coming. Thanks.
Hey!
Well, thanks again, Cass Hudson from the Empire, for joining us on the show. Now let's get to the NFL recap. We break down some of the biggest games from the past weekend. Start with the St. Louis Rams, or the Los Angeles Rams, sorry. I always mix that up. Defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers behind a near-perfect game from Matthew Stafford, 343 yards, 4 touchdowns, including 2 to Cooper Kupp, who's been absolutely on fire to start the year. The defensive front four from the Rams giving Tom Brady and the Buccaneers all sorts of trouble during that game. Matthew Stafford, now QB5 in UFAFL scoring after putting up 46 points for the Doom, who are 2-1, coming off a tough loss this week to the CanWest Gladiators. Cooper Kupp remains the number 1 wide receiver on the season after another 30-plus point performance. Just the Rams have been unreal to start the year. I don't want to worry about Robert Woods quite yet. I know a lot of people, especially on Twitter, asking about where was Robert Woods, because in most of your home leagues, he was probably like a late 4th, early 5th round pick, and he's just invisible in the offense. Like, you're even seeing Deshaun Jackson catch deep touchdowns. You're seeing Van Jefferson get into it. Tyler Higbee has a couple touchdowns. I don't think Woods owners, like the Hydra, I'm looking at you, they're definitely expecting better than wide receiver 49 through 3 games. But with that offense, you just have to wait, because he's definitely going to get his eventually. You might just have to temper your expectations. I don't think you should drop Robert Woods in your home leagues, but you definitely should be worried about Robert Woods' production. On the Tampa Bay side, it was kind of a weird game. They didn't really rush the ball. Like, it's very surprising when you see Tom Brady as the leading rusher for any team at 14 yards. I just don't see many games where Tampa is trailing that much. So be okay. If you're a Tampa Bay fan, you should be fine. If you have players on their squad, they should be fine. Remember, Antonio Brown didn't play in this game. Scotty Miller got hurt, and they're gonna go play New England next weekend. Tom is gonna be jacked up for that game. I think if you have any Tampa players, just relax. They're gonna be fine. Tom he's actually QB1 in UFAFL scoring right now, which is incredible to think about, because he doesn't really rush the ball. So with the running backs like Leonard Fournette, he should be okay. They're going to get back to running the ball. They have a good O-line. They're going to be ahead in a lot of games, especially with that defense. So Legion, I know you might be worried about Ronald Jones. If you have him in your home leagues, you probably want to get rid of him as well. But yeah, it was a good game. We're probably going to see these two teams face off again in the playoffs. It was a really fun game to watch still for the casuals. Aaron Rodgers needed just 37 seconds and Devontae Adams on the field to drive down, and Mason Crosby kicks a 51-yard field goal to give Aaron Rodgers his first victory over his hometown San Francisco 49ers. One of the best games of the young season so far. There was a little bit of controversy in this game. If you didn't see it, Devontae Adams made a catch and he took a big hit. It looked like it was a helmet-to-helmet hit, and it looked like he had a concussion. He went into the tent, but then he came out right away. And there was some confusion that maybe he wasn't concussed. He was just winded, and that's why he stayed on the field. But it didn't seem to affect Adams at all. 12 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. Good for 31.2 points for the 3-0 Heat Wave. He's the wide receiver 5 after 3 weeks. On the 49ers side, Jimmy Garoppolo, he didn't have a bad game. He had that one kind of weird fumble. It looked like he was trying to spike the ball, but it was just kind of an awkward play. But he rebounded with a late touchdown to the Polish powerhouse Kyle Juszczyk. But I can't help to think what this San Francisco offense could be with Trey Lance when he takes over. He had a rushing touchdown in the first half, right before halftime, and his only snap of the game. He's got his second TD of the season. I just think that the potential for that offense with Lance, with the rushing ability, and with those weapons that San Francisco has, like I'm waiting for that day. I think that potential for the Niners offense could be astronomical once Lance gets in there. I understand why Jimmy's playing, but can't wait to see what happens when Trey Lance takes the reins. Ceiling of the Niners definitely looks limited with Garoppolo behind the center, but I bet the Valkyries are hoping are hoping Trey Lance gets in too, so they can start him over Justin Fields because, oh boy, Justin Fields did not really look good his first start in the NFL. The third game I want to talk about, we talked about this at the top. The Chargers go into Arrowhead, and thanks to an uncharacteristic 4 Kansas City turnovers, they beat the Chiefs. 4 touchdown passes by Justin Herbert. We all kind of saw this coming for Herbert. He didn't have great touchdown luck the first 2 weeks, but he had a real nice bounce back. And how crazy is it that the Kansas City Chiefs are last place in the AFC West? Yeah, Raiders and the Broncos ahead of the Chiefs after week 3. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Joey Bosa and the Chargers defensive line just wreaked havoc on the Chiefs O-line all game. Chiefs offense looked out of sync, more costly turnovers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 100 rushing yards, but he fumbled again 2 weeks in a row. But he had a receiving touchdown on a screen pass. Tyreek Hill's only had 70 total receiving yards over the last 2 games, and he fumbled. Don't worry if you have any Chiefs players, like Travis Kelce is a stud. Tyreek Hill's a stud. They just signed Josh Gordon, and they're going to have another weapon, another deep threat to open things up even more in the middle of the field. So I think you're fine. Don't be hasty with your Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes will be okay. But it was just a really good win for the Chargers. Like, it's a big statement win for them. Mike Williams, we talked about this with Cass, showing signs of why he was the 7th overall pick back in 2017. 122 yards and a TD. He's now wide receiver 2 in UFHL scoring, which is crazy to think about. And the Chargers have a big-time game next week with the 3-0 Raiders. I expect the Chargers offense to keep this up. They just have so many weapons across the board. We talked about the improvements on the O-line during the offseason. So just if you have any Chargers players right now, especially Herbert, Eckler, Williams, Keenan Allen, like, you're sitting pretty right now. So let's move over to the UFAFL recap. And it was a good week, a lot of close matchups. The Rowdies, we haven't talked about them too much on the show, but they get their first win of the season, defeating the Red Zone Dragons. Big performances from the defense. We talked about this with Cass. Like, sacks go a long way in this league, and the Rowdies proved it. Jadeveon Clowney, 33.5 points. The Browns sacked Justin Fields 9 times, and that's where Clowney got his. So really good performance for him. Denver's Alexander Johnson, a linebacker, also got 35 points. He had an interception. Denver smashed the Jets. That was pretty easy to see. So, yeah, it's just amazing what happens with this league when you get sacks and good defensive plays. Gridiron Seals, we've talked about these guys before. They're 3-0 behind a 55.8 point performance from Buffalo QB Josh Allen. Some people were worried about Allen after 2 weeks, saying that the Bills' offense wasn't in sync. Like, guys, they blew everybody out of the water last year. People, like, Josh Allen isn't a surprise, so he was going to have those type of games. But to do it against a really good Washington defense, if you're a Josh Allen owner, you're very happy. And you know who you get next week? The Houston Texans. So I expect more big things from Josh Allen and the Buffalo offense. It was a good battle for the Seals. Both teams in that matchup put up 230 points. Seals got big performances from Kareem Hunt and Jamar Chase as well. Jamar Chase really looks like the real deal after apparently not being able to catch the ball in the preseason. I think we can all forget about that. But maybe the most impressive performance from this week was that of Cleveland's defensive end, Myles Garrett. He had almost as many points as Josh Allen, 55 points, 4.5 sacks for the Silverbacks, who moved to 2-1 after defeating the Legion. We talked about Cleveland. They sacked Justin Fields 9 times. Cleveland could easily be 3-0 if they didn't blow it to the Chiefs in week 1. Don't tell Andy McNamara what I just said, but Cleveland looks like the real deal in the AFC, and I'd be shocked if they're not in contention with the Chiefs and the Bills come playoff time. Let's move over to stock up and stock down. So we talked about the Cleveland Browns. They are my stock up for this week. What I really like about the Browns is that for the running backs, did you know that they're both top 10 right now in UFAFL scoring? After Sunday night, they were 7th and 8th, respectively. However, Ezekiel Elliott, after this Monday night performance, did put himself 0.3 points ahead of Nick Chubb. So right now, Chubb and Hunt are 8th and 9th at UFAFL scoring. Like Kareem Hunt, if Nick Chubb ever goes down, like he's got potential to be a top 10 fantasy running back. That O-line is amazing. And the best thing about for the Cleveland Browns, Odell Beckham Jr. is back. He caught 5 balls. After the game, he said that he was really winded. So I can only imagine once he gets his body back up into like football shape, what that will do even more for the Cleveland offense. It would just, that one receiving threat will open up so much more for the running backs. They have a really good defense. I'm just thinking like Cleveland's just going to be a really good team. They're going to blow out a lot of the bad teams because no one can really stop that potent attack. And if you get OBJ over the top scoring touchdowns, I think there's a lot of good things coming for the Browns going forward. And you look at their upcoming schedule, the Vikings, Chargers, and the Cardinals, 3 winnable games with 3 defenses that don't really scare me. So if you have any pieces on Cleveland, I think you're extremely happy and you're going to be happy the whole season. Now, my stock down for this week, it's a little bit different. I've usually been harping on bad offenses with injuries. I want to talk about the Denver Broncos and their expectations going forward. So I'm not so much down on the talent because they do have a lot of talent, especially in their skill position. Cortland Sutton has looked great to start the year coming back off an injury. But the Broncos have played the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets, who are a combined 0-9 to start the year. And now the next 4 opponents, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Raiders, and then the Browns. So I just think you have to temper your expectations. It's hard to play Teddy Bridgewater unless you're in a really deep league. And I don't really think he'd be like a top 12 play going forward in your home leagues. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, the running backs, have both been good. But like we said, it's been against crappy defenses. So let's see what happens when they go against these better teams in the league. I just think like if you just temper your expectations just a little bit, the game should get infinitely tougher. So it might work out for a guy like Tim Patrick. Like the Denver Broncos are probably going to have to throw more to keep up with these teams. But I don't know if they're for real yet. I'm just waiting to see what happens after these next 4 weeks. So to end off the show, we'll talk about my best bets. And I'm 1-1 after week 2. I guess that the bounty hunters would cover the big spread against the Heat Wave. The Heat Wave got the victory by 53.4 points instead of the 59 points that they were expected. So let's see if I can keep the momentum going. As of Monday at noon, the Circus Sports Trout were 52-point favorites over the Paradise Blackhawks. But that line went down 31.9 on Tuesday morning. The Blackhawks put up close to 250 points on Sunday. That was without Darrell Henderson, the starting running back for the Rams. And they had a bad game for Patrick Mahomes. Also for PBH, Hollywood Brown didn't have a great game. He had 3 massive drops that he would have scored at least 2 touchdowns in that game. So I don't expect I expect some of these guys to have bounce back performances. Trout had 50 points just from 2 of the running backs. Najee Harris had 19 targets, 14 catches. Antonio Gibson had that long 70-yard touchdown grab. So 50 points from 2 running backs, that's just hard to predict. And I don't think PBH will have as much of a problem scoring. So I just think that 31.9 point spread is a little bit high. So I think the Blackhawks are my pick for this week. That should be a great game, though. There's a lot of stars in that matchup. So that would be it for this show. Another exciting week in the UFAFL. Thank you, Cass Hudson, for stopping by once again. And thank you for the production staff behind the scenes, Dean Millard, Jamie Thompson, Andy Mack running the show, Darren as well, holding it down for the UFAFL. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been really fun so far the last couple of weeks, and the NFL is only getting better. Thursday nighter is the Jaguars and the Bengals. So if you have your Bengals, start them because the Jaguars look like trash. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon all look like the real deal, especially if T. Higgins is out. Tyler Boyd as well should have a good game. It's going to be an exciting week 4. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week.